Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is a trainer education, and we're going to continue talking about exercise selection. So this is part two. We did a part one a couple podcasts ago. That was like 30-some minutes, and believe it or not, I still have more to talk about. And there's two questions we're going to kind of present to ourselves today in regards to how to best select the best exercise. So the first question is, what is the limiting factor of this exercise? And this would seem, a lot of this stuff is going to seem like common sense, but it's amazingly not common, in the sense that when I see what other trainers program, and I do consultations with trainers. I have helped other trainers become trainers. So we've had interns through the gym, 20-some interns. I've helped a lot of trainers as clients. So half of my clients right now are actually personal trainers that I do programming for and exercise selection and all that stuff. Also, I've gone and done consultations at major box gyms, like commercial gyms, and tried to help their trainer development programs and stuff like that. So been around a lot of trainers, done a lot of work with trainers, and very commonly they'll select an exercise that does target the thing that they want, but the thing that they want isn't the limiting factor of the movement. So we're going to go through some examples here. So let's go through a basic one. For example, would be doing dumbbell chest presses with people who are kind of like beginners. So they're really new to lifting, and maybe they're just not very coordinated. It's still new to them in the sense that if you're doing dumbbell presses and you want to work on their pushing strength, okay, so a dumbbell chest press is a push exercise. It's going to work their chest and their triceps. Their front shoulders are getting, contraction in the movement, but it absolutely should be more chest driven and tricep driven than front shoulder driven. So you would do that exercise with the assumption that it's going to make your chest and triceps, your push muscles, stronger. Now, there's a second question we're going to be asking ourselves in regards to, will this do what I want? And that's going to talk about rep ranges and time under tensions. So let's just for now assume that the person, if they're doing chest presses to get the person stronger, they have the correct time under tension and rep range for strength. Now that's a large assumption, but let's go with it, okay? Now, if somebody's a beginner, is their strength going to be the limiting factor, or is their stabilization of the dumbbells going to be the limiting factor? So if they're doing dumbbell chest presses, what is the limiting factor? Is it going to be they fail in their push muscle strength, or they fail in their ability to stabilize the heavy weight when they get fatigued? The reason why this is important is whatever is the limiting factor of the exercise is what gets worked. So for example, let's say I'm doing a really heavy back exercise and I want to maximize my back's involvement and use the most of my back. But while trying to do the exercise, my grip gives out and I can't hold the weight anymore. Well, did you actually max out your back ability, or did your grip die first? If the grip dies first, okay, and you can't hold on to the weight anymore, then you're not going to maximize your back's ability to exercise. You're maximizing your grip. Therefore, what you're actually doing is a very elaborate grip exercise. Now, do we need to develop a stronger grip to eventually get to be able to train our back correctly? Yes and no. I mean, you can use wrist wraps, right? Straps, okay? There are wrist wraps, which wrap your wrist for stability. Then there's wrist straps, which actually help you hold on to things, okay? So you'd wrap that around your wrist, you wrap it around the implement you're trying to grab, and that's going to help you hold on to it more. So it would be, yes, in that example, we would want to build a client's grip strength, but we also want to make sure that their back gets maximally worked. So an example like that is you might use no straps, okay, no grip aid in their warm-ups, in their like first couple working sets. But once their grip starts to become fatigued, and you can see that the grip is actually becoming the issue, not back fatigue, you would go ahead and use the straps to help their grip. That way you can maximize their back. So since their grip is already getting fatigued, you've already worked their grip enough that it will adapt and get stronger over time. But if you just stop when the grip is dead, you don't fully get the back development, the back muscular damage and stress that you would want. So you have to throw straps on, get the rest of the remaining effort out of the back that might be left, and then you can move on to a new exercise. That way, you got the grip development, but you didn't limit your back development. You used the straps, so you also got full back development out of that exercise. So that's an example of where there are things we can do in aids or modifications we can make to make sure that the limiting factor becomes what we want it to be. So without the straps, the limiting factor was grip. Therefore, no matter what the hell the exercise was, no matter what you thought it was working in their back, it wasn't. It was going to work their grip the most. Could they have gotten maybe a 60% or 70% or 80% work out of their back? Sure. But are you happy with only 60, 70, or 80% results? No, hopefully not. So that's an example where we want to make sure the limiting factor was back strength if your back strength is the target. So if we go back to the dumbbell presses, if you want to work on push muscle strength, you have to make sure that stabilization isn't the limiting factor. Otherwise, you're not maximizing push strength, you're maximizing stabilization. Now, stabilization important? Yes, they do need to eventually create stabilization, just like we do need to create grip strength. But until stabilization is created well enough, you're never going to fully stress their strength of the push muscles if you always have to stop when they can no longer stabilize the exercise. This is an example why free weights, dumbbells and barbells and things like that, are different than machines. And it's also an example why machines are actually helpful to have. So sometimes people poo-poo on machines and they say everything should be free weights and quote-unquote functional movements. Okay, whatever. There's a lot of benefits to it, but it doesn't all encompass everything you need. So machines have been made for 60, 70 years or whatever in exercise, and they continue to be made and they continue to be even improved upon because people know how important they are, how helpful they can be. So an example of this is you might have someone do a chest press machine for their strength movement and then do dumbbell presses as a secondary movement. Now that's odd. We would traditionally think the free weight thing should be the strength and the machine should be the secondary. But if their stabilization is weaker than their strength, meaning the stabilization dies first, then absolutely the machine should be used for strength because it takes away the stabilization limiting factor. And it actually makes their push muscle strength the limiting factor. Therefore, that's what you're going to get worked the most. So, it's really important that we identify what the limiting factor of an exercise is because whatever that limiting factor is what gets used the most. And if that isn't what we want, then we got to make some modifications. So, I've talked before about an exercise called Zercher squats. And if you don't know what that is, pause this podcast and look it up on YouTube or something really fast. It's Zercher, which is Zercher. Okay? Zercher squats. What it is, it's kind of like you cradle a barbell in your elbow pits. Like you fold your arms, like you're kind of like, just kind of like folding your arms resting. And a barbell is going to sit across like the bottom of your bicep, like in your elbow pits. And you're going to try to hold a really heavy barbell there. And you're going to try to like actually like kind of almost do like a sumo stance or a wide stance squat with that bar resting in your elbow pits. That sucks, by the way. So it makes your upper back rounded. And some people will use this type of an exercise because they think it's going to help kind of prevent somebody or assist somebody to aid in upper back rounding strength prevention. So that way they can kind of get their upper back strong enough to not round their upper back. I think the exercise is absolutely stupid. The reason why I bring it up is because it's a great example of somebody wanting an intent of an exercise, but the limiting factors are so glaringly, ridiculously in the way that I can't believe people still give this exercise. So if you've never done a Zercher squat, you can do some light ones to get an idea of what I'm talking about. Don't go crazy heavy and hurt yourself because it's not even worth it. So, but does the concept of a Zercher squat have good appeal? Yes, absolutely. But is the concept the target that people want to stress using a Zercher squat? Okay, their target. Is that the limiting factor? Hell no. So by far the limiting factor is the ridiculously uncomfortable fact of the bar being resting in your elbow armpits, okay, like your elbow pits. So even if you use a thick bar, that's still going to hurt and not go well. And your biceps actually are more recruited when you have a thicker bar because your forearms have to be more extended. So you end up getting in a lot of bicep stress when you use a thick bar to try to get rid of the pressure point pain in the elbow pit. So then if you use a thin bar to get rid of the bicep stress, you now have a whole bunch of pressure point pain in your elbow pit. So you're kind of screwed no matter what kind of modifications you make, which is why it's a stupid ass exercise, because you're limited in what the hell is going on in your arms, not in your upper back. Okay, now have people used Zercher squats and got results from them? Yes. This is why exercise selection is so damn tricky. The reason why people will get results from Zercher squats is almost 100% due to the fact that they've never done that stimulus before, and if they were to be dedicated towards doing it and they're consistent with it, their body has to adapt in some degree. So, a better question to ask ourselves is, are we getting the best results for the efforts that we're putting in by using Zercher squats? No, hell no, not even ridiculously close. Okay? So we've talked about this before, is when somebody is new to a stimulus, you can have the stimulus be wrong, and they're still going to get some good results out of it. So if I have a client who wants to lose body fat, and I make them do jumping jacks for an hour, are they going to burn calories and lose body fat? Yes. Is doing jumping jacks for an hour the best way for them to use their efforts and exercise? Hell no. That's absolutely stupid, right? We would know that doing jumping jacks for an hour is dumb, but would it result in progress? Will they actually lose weight? Yes. So just because something is dumb doesn't mean you don't get any results. It just means you might not get optimal results. So people who've done Zercher squats will argue with me and say, well, my deadlift went up X number of pounds, or my squat, I stopped rounding over as much. Okay, but that was probably one exercise out of an entire program you were doing. And how do you know if you can identify the results separate of Zercher squats from the rest of the program? And even if they said, well, from the last 8-week program, the only thing I changed was Zercher squats. Yeah, but you still did 8 more weeks of training with those same exercises. So you still have 8 more weeks of strength training under your belt. Of course, you're going to get some improvement. So I'm not saying Zercher squats don't get any results. I'm just saying they don't get optimal results. And that's what we want to pay attention to. Just like our example of heavy back rows, if you do heavy back rows until your grip dies and you get 70% results out of your back, will you get some progress in your back? Yes, you will. But are you going to get all the progress possible? No. Just like if you make a true beginner do dumbbell presses till their stabilization dies. Are they going to, over time, be able to press more weight? Yes. Because their stabilization will improve, therefore they can better use the strength they already had, and it'll look like improvements in new strength when it's not. You're just eliminating the limiting factor that was holding back them from displaying their best strength that they already had. So this becomes very, very challenging, especially for trainers, because you can do any stupid shit and it'll work to some degree. So then, how do you identify what is the best thing if all things work some? That becomes the challenge. And it's a challenge absolutely worth trying to figure out. Because if I'm going to spend 6 months of my own training time I want to get the most out of the 6 months I can get while also being the safest. We would want to do that for ourselves. And we want to give that same courtesy to our clients. We want to get the most of the results possible with the most amount of safety and limiting of kind of like achy joints and pains and muscle strains and just being ridiculously uncomfortable in their training. So Zercher squats are uncomfortable as shit. And they're not even the best way to get the results that you want for that type of movement. So if you can find a different movement that doesn't have limiting factors unrelated to what you want, and it's more comfortable, holy hell, that's going to be great. You get to train hard and not feel as bad from it, okay? That's what you want to do for your clients. And being able to limit joint strains and pains is great, because that's going to help people stick with training longer. So too often I hear people talk about strength training and they'll say, oh, powerlifting just beats you up. You can't powerlift forever. Well, if you lift like a jackass, no, yeah, you're right. If your joints hurt, your back hurts, your shoulder hurts, your elbow hurts, every time you do a squat, bench, or deadlift, then no freaking wonder you're not going to think it's a great sport because you're lifting like a jackass. You don't have exercises that match you well. Now, I get all fired up on this stuff because I get really mad at trainers who don't know any better. And they just funnel through client after client after client. So they'll look at the last year or two of the people they work with. And maybe they worked with 20 people in the last year. 6 or 7 or 8 of them don't even work out anymore because they were too beat up from the training. 4 or 5 of them no longer have any passion for training and they're just kind of meandering around in their workouts. And then you have 1 or 2 maybe that still are killing it and doing great because they have awesome genetics and they could handle the stupidity of the programming. But you'll see that all the time, and it's so sad, is trainers will take someone who has all the passion in the world and they just beat the shit out of them with incorrect exercise, incorrect programming, and that person loses passion for physical exercise, and therefore their entire health goes down. Their mental health, emotional health, physical health, social health. So without knowing it, a trainer who doesn't program correctly just wears out their clients, and they actually degrade the quality of their life. And that sucks. It sucks to watch that happen. So that's why I get fired up, because I wish I could just grab those trainers, kind of shake them a little bit, and share what I know. Now, do I know everything? Not even close. Okay, not at all. I'm still learning new things every damn day. But I've learned new things every damn day since I started lifting, which was 19 years ago. Okay? And since I started personal training, which was 17 years ago. So I started training people for money, and this was a job for me for 17 years. So whatever the hell 17 times 365 is, that's how many days I've learned something new. So when I want to grab a trainer, shake them, and teach them what I know, it isn't because I think I can solve all of their problems. I can just teach them things that I've learned, but teach them in a faster way. And say, hey, here's what I know, get to where I am now fast, and then let's both keep growing from here. So you just want to grab them and give them a little bit of a shortcut, maybe some way that can save the wear and tear and stress and negativity that they're putting into their clients' lives. And that's what I hope that the trainers who invest their time into listening to this podcast, that's the true reason why I want you to learn this information, is not only for your own progress, okay, in terms of results from training, and not only for your clients' progress in regards to results from training, but also just understanding how to better control the quality of your life and their life. How do we make exercise feel safe? How do we make it feel comfortable, but still challenging in the right ways that we can still get progress? We build confidence in our clients. We build mental health, emotional health, relationship health, social health. We use exercise to improve their whole overall being, their whole health. That's what we want to do. And believe it or not, understanding how to select the right exercises is a huge part of that, to make sure we get the best results for their efforts. They're the safest they can be. It's the most comfortable they can be in the things that we don't need to be uncomfortable in. You don't have to have joint pain all the time. Now, are there some nicks and bumps and things along the way? Yes. But there shouldn't be chronic, everyday things that happen. Okay? That, like, oh, that's just the way it is when you lift weights. No, not at all. Exercise should be a benefit to your life, not a detriment. So, that's what we want to think of when we select exercises. That's why the first question is so important, is what is the limiting factor of this exercise? Because whatever the limiting factor is what is getting worked the most. And if that isn't what our intended target is, we're not getting the intended results out of that exercise. Okay? So that's the first question you want to ask yourself. Now the second question, because I'm already going to be short on time again, is will this exercise do what I want it to do? Okay? So we need to understand the information in podcast 214 titled Understanding Rep Ranges and Expected Results. What that reviews is when you do time under tension, okay, when you're under the tension of the weight, there's like the differing amounts of time that you stay under tension, and in a tension that results in muscular failure, you will get different results. So if I do something that's like, say, 3 seconds, a really heavy, crazy hard rep, and I just do kind of one and done, that doesn't really build strength. That's actually just our ability to display how strong we are. So, in general, in podcast 214, we discuss exercises done with rep ranges, okay, that cause you to fail in the time under the tension of that weight at 0 to 10 seconds, kind of just displays the strength you already have. Now, that's a skill. You can improve the skill of that. Okay? So if I have 200 pounds of strength for bench press, but I only have 180 pounds worth of technique, then practicing exercises at 10 seconds or less of bench pressing, okay, gets me better skill set at displaying my strength. So eventually I can maybe start to actually show that I'm 200 pounds strong. So exercises done for 10 seconds or less are very helpful for learning to display the best of the strength we already have. Exercises done with time under tension that causes failure, so heavy enough weight that you fail at the exercise, from 10 to 20 seconds in general will actually help you build strength. Now, the key there is you're not going to necessarily build a lot of muscle mass because it isn't quite enough time under tension to create the maximum amount of muscular damage. You're causing very good central nervous system damage, which equates to strength display. Okay, so you can increase your strength. But it's not until we get to like 20 to 30 seconds of time under tension that we start to maximize muscular damage of the exercise. Now, if we get muscular damage and we have a caloric surplus, we get bigger muscles. If we get muscular damage but we have controlled calories, okay, at maintenance or lower, then it helps you get leaner, kind of be like more shaped and toned and kind of tighter physique. Okay? So 20 to 30 seconds is kind of heavy muscular damage training. 30 to 40 seconds is kind of medium muscular damage, and 40 to 60 seconds is kind of lightweight muscular damage. And then as you get closer to 60 and over, you're more so just doing muscular endurance than actual damaging of the muscle. So 214 tells us that what time under tension ranges we would lift in, what results or expected outcomes we can get. This is important now because if I'm doing an exercise and I'm intending to, say, make the person get stronger, but they're just doing, 1 to 2 reps or 3 reps where it's 10 seconds or less, they might start showing greater strength. So maybe their bench goes from 185 to 190. But what you're actually doing is improving their ability to show their current strength. You're actually not building new strength, you're improving their ability to show their current strength. And that's, again, another thing that can be confusing for trainers, is because you'll be doing exercises of 10 seconds or less, and the person's max will go up. They might get 5 more pounds in a lift, and you're like, oh man, I made them stronger. No, no, you did not. You gave them ability to better display their current strength. But if you don't also do exercises of 10 to 20 second range, you're never improving upon that overall strength level. So all of a sudden, if all you're ever doing is 10 seconds or less, they're going to get a couple little boosts in strength, but then it's going to plateau. And you're going to be stuck as to wondering why the hell it's plateauing, because you're never building new strength. You're just increasing their ability to display their current strength. So if their current strength is 200 capacity, and then you improve their technique and their ability to display their strength to 200 pounds, okay? So if they started at 185, then all of a sudden they get a max at 190, then 195, then 200. And then they're just stuck at 200 for 6 months. It's because you're not building upon their capacity of strength. You're just better displaying their current strength. So we need to work on all facets of strength. You need to work on their ability to display their strength, but you also need to build the capacity of strength. You need to have both components if you want them to get ongoing progressive results for long-term over time. So if you want a strength client who can progress for 2 years in a row, maybe they do a meet, 2 to 3 times a year, and you can get them 6, 7, 8 meets in, and they're still making PRs, that's what you want. If you do, like the first year, they make a bunch of jumps, but then all of a sudden they're kind of plateaued for 6 months to a year, you're missing the boat. You're missing a component here. Okay? You're either trying to maybe work on their capacity of strength, but you're never improving their ability to show it. Or you're only working on their ability to show strength, but you're never working on their ability of capacity. So it's really important that we understand that. Another thing I see all the time is somebody will say, well, I'm going to do this bodybuilding stuff, okay, to get my muscles bigger, so then I can train them into strength ranges and build my strength capacity. Awesome idea, except for the fact that the client they're working with or themselves is not in a caloric surplus. So how the hell are you building new muscle that you can eventually make strong if you don't have the calories to actually build the new muscle? So you might be doing bodybuilding type training, but if you're not eating like a bodybuilder, you don't have a caloric surplus, you're not building any new muscle. So therefore, you're never going to have new muscle to learn new strength with. But you hear it all the time. Oh, I'm doing this accessory work to build new muscle so I can eventually turn that new muscle into strength. Okay, but you don't have any extra calories. Where the hell do you think that new muscle is coming from? It's ridiculous, okay? So that's what we want to try to be aware of is, will this exercise, once I have the right one, once I get rid of the limiting factor that might be in the way, will this exercise do what I want it to do? And in order to know that, you have to understand rep ranges and time under tension ranges. Then you have to prescribe them correctly based on what result you want for the exercise you're doing. So for example, if they're doing sets of 5 on bench press because you want them to increase their strength capacity, does that client doing 5 reps, does that take between 10 to 20 seconds? Maybe you have a client who moves very fast and 5 reps takes them like 6 or 7 seconds. Then they're still only displaying their strength. They're not building their strength. So you need to slow them down or you need to give them more reps. So for all of my clients, I actually know the general speed that they move. So I might have one client doing, say, eggshell deadlifts to work on positioning of deadlift, okay? And I want them to be better positioned under heavier weight loads. So they only might do an eggshell deadlift of, say, like 3 to 5 reps because that's going to take 10 seconds or less. And it's going to better equate to very heavy strength, like very heavy weights, and their ability to display their strength better. But if I want them doing eggshell deadlifts to build strength, then maybe they're going to do sets of like 8 to 12 because that's going to take in the 10 to 20 second range, and that's actually going to build their strength capacity. Then I might have a client who moves really slow, so I might only give them 8 reps to get them in the 10 to 20 second range. I might have a client that moves really fast, so I might give them 12 to 14 reps to get them in the 10 to 20 second range. So understanding your client's speeds, understanding that the rep ranges need to equate to time under tension ranges, all of that stuff is important to make sure you're actually getting the result that you want from the exercise you're prescribing. So for all of your exercises, you need to know what is the number of reps that a person would typically do if I want them to do, say, 10 to 20 seconds, or 20 to 30 seconds, or 30 to 40 seconds. So recently with a trainer, we actually went through and did a couple example exercises where they timed themselves for 10 seconds, and they saw, for example, they could do 5 reps in 10 seconds. So therefore, 10 to 20 seconds would be 5 to 10 reps. 20 to 30 seconds would be 10 to 15 reps of that particular exercise. So they now had to understand what is the rep ranges that result to that will result in the type of progress they want, and what are the rep ranges correct for which exercises. Certain exercises have longer ranges of motion, therefore they might take fewer reps. Certain exercises have shorter range of motion, so they might take more reps. We need to know this stuff. So I'll talk more about this maybe in part 3, because we're already over 30 minutes. But I'll talk a little bit more about that, about how we did that, and how I helped that trainer better identify for all types of presses what are the rep ranges for the different type of results they might want. Okay, so real